Good afternoon. My name is Robert Abraham, the Assistant Chief of the La Crosse Police Department. I'm a team leader of a team that is currently assessing the Janesville Police Department. The other members of the assessment team are Aaron Christensen of the Waukesha Police Department and Philip Noche of the West Dallas Police Department. We are all law enforcement practitioners from other areas of the state. We are here as representatives of the Wisconsin Law Enforcement Accreditation Group. The Janesville Police Department has voluntarily asked for this assessment to determine if it meets the standards set by the group for law enforcement agency accreditation. The governing board of the Wisconsin Law Enforcement Accreditation Group has adopted 238 standards covering all facets of law enforcement management, operations, and support functions. A copy of these standards is available for public inspection at the Janesville Police Department. A copy of the standards here. In case anybody had any questions, we could see them here. If the police department, or if it is determined that these standards are met, the Janesville Police Department will have demonstrated its commitment to professional excellence and will be granted accreditation by the Wisconsin Law Enforcement Accreditation Group. The purpose of this publicly announced hearing is to provide interested citizens and employees of the agency an opportunity to comment on the agency's ability to comply with these standards. Any comments made here or other communications received by assessors will be documented as part of our final report to the governing board. Members of the public or employees of the agency may also make comments in writing, which can be submitted to me tonight or mailed to the board within 10 days of this hearing. Speakers will be called in order in which they registered upon entering the hearing room. If you wish to speak and have not registered, you may do so now. I'd like to remind you that this hearing is being recorded. If you have the list, we can start having some people come up to speak. So I was told that there are some people who need to make it to another meeting, so if those people would just want to indicate who they are and if they'd like to go first, then otherwise I'll just start calling on people. Oh, okay. Janesville Area Crime Stoppers, Christine Rayboat.
Good evening. My name is Christine Rebout, and I'm here tonight on behalf of two community organizations. My comments tonight are focused on the community relations area of accreditation. As chair of Janesville Area Crime Stoppers and a 15-year board member, it's a true pleasure to partner with the Janesville Police Department. Janesville Area Crime Stoppers is a nonprofit organization led by a volunteer board of community members. From the chief to our crime prevention liaison to the officers on the street every day, our relationship is one of true partnership. Since 1985, Janesville Area Crime Stoppers has accounted for over 1,500 arrests, recovered over $1 million in stolen property, money, and illegal narcotics, and awarded over $60,000 to individuals providing information anonymously to solve these crimes. This success comes from partnering with a proficient, efficient, and dedicated police department. As executive director of the Janesville Area Convention and Visitors Bureau, I also have a strong appreciation for the abilities of the Janesville Police Department. Our mission includes bringing people to the Janesville area to create a positive economic impact, which in turn improves the quality of life for Janesville residents. The ability of our police department to keep our crime rates low gives us a competitive edge over other communities when luring meeting and conference events or leisure travelers. Additionally, the police department is extremely receptive to our needs when working to bring a special event or activity to our community. Whether providing additional officers to help with traffic control or assisting in closing a street for a Saturday farmers market, the police department is a receptive partner in the success of our events. The police department has also assisted us in bringing significant economic impact by hosting state and regional industry conferences. These events include the Wisconsin Police Chiefs Conference and most recently the Midwest Police Chaplains Conference. On a personal level, the quality of this department is why I choose to live, work, and raise my family here.
Thank you. The Boys and Girls Club of Janesville.
Hello, my name is Kerry Kolinsky. I'm the Executive Director of the Boys and Girls Club of Janesville. The Janesville Police Department has been a valued community partner to the Boys and Girls Club of Janesville for more than 25 years. In the 2 years that I've been executive director of the club, the Janesville Police Department has contributed to the club in the following ways. Had officers come and do regular safety presentations to our members. Had officers come during our Red Ribbon Week to discuss the dangers of drugs and alcohol with our members. The kids love it when they bring the canine officer over for a visit. Help plan our Clays for Kids fundraiser. Have taken part in our fundraisers and donated officer time during our Shamrock Run and our golf outing. Have had police officers serving on our board of directors for more than 11 years. Donated drug or gun-free zones door decals to our club. We'll have an officer working on our newly formed safety committee. Have donated funds to the club through their ongoing Crime Stoppers program and the police union. Have donated trash bags to the club, which we always need with 100 kids there every day. Have collaborated with us on National Night Out, where our club members run games and they'd offered us an informational booth to help promote our club. As part of our summer career program, we take our members on tours of the police department, and the officers talk to them about what it's like to have a career in law enforcement. They offer a yearly bike rodeo at our neighborhood elementary school, and always make sure that our club members are there to receive new bikes and learn about bicycle safety. The Janesville Police Department is a friend of the club, and I look forward to working with them for many more years. Thank you.
Thank you. The YWCA, Jane McCauley.
I'm really pleased to be here. We have a lot of really great contact with the Janesville Police Department. They have been really helpful in helping us with our clients. The YWCA has a domestic abuse shelter. We also have a transitional housing complex. And so they have been invaluable in helping our clients with safety issues. They've also helped our staff be safe when perpetrators or abusers may be a little closer than we like them. So we've had a couple of people have written some statements, and I'd like to read those. So Martha Pearson is the director of our transitional housing, and she said last year we had a resident move in with her abuser. Her abuser has the infamy of having sent the largest number of women to the YWCA shelter. The police were there frequently as he kicked down doors, ran through the building, basically terrorizing all the women who lived in our program. They never made any of us, staff or residents, feel as though this was a never-ending problem and was an imposition. It took us 3 months to evict the tenant, and I want to say that they were here at least weekly and some weeks more frequently. If they heard anything about him, perhaps he was in jail for a week, they would contact us and let us know, keep us in the loop. It was a very scary time here for our residents and staff, and I believe that the police department helped reduce that fear whenever possible. On the day that we received the paperwork from the court, they spent about an hour checking on all the local laws and found that we would not have to go through the Rock County Sheriff and finish the situation that day. So that probably saved us 3 weeks in paperwork and time. So that is just one small incident. Our interim director of the Alternatives to Violence program wrote, "Here are my comments on community relation. Our relationship goes beyond the shared interaction with victims of domestic violence. JPD has been participants, supporters, or partners in some of the YWCA events and fundraisers such as Walk a Mile and our Candlelight Vigil that honors domestic violence victims. their presence means more than just having security. They are completely well-versed in the dynamics of domestic violence, and they go out of their way to show victims where to go to get help. Crisita Barrios is our immigrant outreach director, and she wrote these things. These great efforts, she's listing some of the efforts that JPD has helped her with and her clients. These great efforts on their end has had a great impact on the Latino community here in Rock County. The Janesville Police Department has taken great steps in meeting and working with the Latino community. In October 2010, a coalition was formed to address community efforts with regards to the fear of immigrant community and reporting crimes. Their vision was to establish forums for mutual education and cultural understanding between the Latino community and the Janesville Police Department, and to increase literacy on law and civil responsibility in the Latino community. The committee was made up of various community activists, leaders and officers in the Janesville Police Department, Chief Moore, John Olson, and Chad Sullivan. The YWCA's Immigrant Outreach Program has seen an increase in immigrants reporting cases of domestic violence. The Janesville Police Department has taken steps in recruiting and hiring of bilingual and bicultural officers, and the Janesville Police Department took steps to have a few of its domestic violence intervention team officers learn about the U visa certification and how to assist victims with the certification process. The Janesville Police Department has been successful in bridging the gap between the Latino community and the Janesville Police Department. Relationships of trust have been developed and people feel safe to report crimes. For myself, I'm the legal advocate at the YWCA, and so I have a lot of contact with their domestic violence intervention team. Our contact with these victims has increased 100%, and we are able to reach out to them and offer them the needed support that they need, and they feel like the police department cares. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Cathy Sukis?
Hi, I'm Cathy Sukis, and I am the director of the Rock County 911 Center. Our center consolidated in 1993, and prior to that, the Janesville Police Department had their own dispatch center, and sometimes when that happens with consolidation, there's a divide between the agencies. But I can honestly say, since I've been there since 1993, that we've always felt as a kind of a part of the Janesville Police Department. They regularly include us in their training. They provide training. We just recently had some domestic violence training that one of their sergeants offered to come, trained our dispatchers on, victims, how domestic violence victims react, what they are looking for from us when we process calls, 911 call evidence, and things like that. They regularly invite us to their, we had active shooter training, and they have the dispatchers come and just watch that. We don't get that a lot of offers like that. We have a communications response team during the presidential elections a couple of years ago and other VIP incidents. They regularly include us in those events and the planning and coordination of the communications. Even just acknowledging the dispatchers during Telecommunicator Week. They come bring treats. They just make us feel as part of their team. They regularly attend our law work groups where they have representatives that help us create policies and know the importance of trying to streamline some of those policies so that we don't have to train for different jurisdictions, different ways to do things. They're not afraid to stand up if there's something that might not work for their department, but they're always willing to compromise. They attend Chief Moore attends the commission meetings regularly to approve the policies and the decisions that we make in the work group. Let's see here. Recently, we were involved in a tabletop for active shooters. They're always looking for our input, especially towards the radio end of things. the Project Direct Connect that we also work with them on for the school system, providing portable radios to the different schools for more direct contact with the 911 center in case of an active shooter incident. We recently created a public service announcement to publicize our non-emergency number, and they were one of the first agencies to jump on board without knowing what they were going to have to do. And it was kind of a team building for just all of the agencies. And I see them at the work groups interacting with the agencies, volunteering to help out with Honor Guard and other things and collaborate with the other agencies. And being an accredited center, we're a CLIA accredited center, the only one in Wisconsin since 2000, I know how important it is not just to have things in writing, but to practice what you preach. And they really do practice what they preach, keep us involved in the loop, involve other agencies in the community, and listen to our input. So we appreciate having them as a partner. So thanks.
Thank you. And I understand that the Rock County 911 is CLIA accredited?
CLIA.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Margaret Delaney?
Hi, Margaret Delay, interested citizen. I'm here this afternoon to support the entire Janesville Police Department for this accreditation process. I live in the Look West Historic District, and with the help from the Janesville Police Department, we have improved our neighborhood's living environment almost 100% since the last accreditation process 5 years ago. The drug houses are almost gone entirely, still one now and then. The prostitution houses are gone, and the pit bull fighting houses are also gone. We've been working with Officer Jeff Winarski since last summer. When problems would arise, we would either call or email him and solve the issues we were having at the time. Our neighborhood was the quietest in years all last summer. We were able to walk some of the neighborhood with the chief and other officers and employees from the city and other neighbors last May of 2013. Our neighborhood citizens felt this show of support was instrumental in how good our neighborhood was last summer. We are planning another one sometime this early spring. Between the Look West Historic Neighborhood and the Old Fourth Ward Historic Neighborhood that surround the center city on the south and the west sides, we have been working together with the city and the police department since 2005 to make our neighborhood safer. And now, in 2014, just 9 years later, we have seen so much improvement with all of the help from the police and the city. We now have families buying homes and moving back into our neighborhoods. And that makes us really, really happy and thankful for all the help we've had. When other Wisconsin cities lost automotive plants, they usually lost at least one neighborhood. We lost General Motors plant in 2008, and thankfully, we haven't lost one neighborhood, thanks in part to our Janesville Police Department support and the help from the city of Janesville. Thank you.
Thank you. Barb Tillman?
Thank you. I'm Barb Tillman. I'm the Chief Deputy at the Rock County Sheriff's Office. And first of all, I'd like to thank the three of you for taking your time to serve on this committee and to help further professionalize the standards for law enforcement in the state of Wisconsin. So I want to recognize that. For the past 32 years, I've had an association with the Janesville Police Department through my work at the Rock County Sheriff's Office. And I'm here today on behalf of Sheriff Spoden and all the men and women that have the privilege to work with the members of the Janesville Police Department. We have had a strong partnership with Janesville Police Department. We've conducted joint training, active shooter training, honor guard training, all sorts of events that the Janesville Police Department has recently hosted. We've had our officers attend. So we know that they have a strong commitment to providing not only training for their agency, but for the other law enforcement partners in the area. We've also had an opportunity to work cooperatively in some major investigations with the Janesville Police Department. They've assisted us in one triple homicide investigation in particular over the years, and that cooperation has been very successful for us. We work with their street crimes unit and our special investigations unit on drug cases in the county. We've conducted joint search warrants with the Janesville Police Department. Most recently, last year, we were involved in dignitary protection for Vice President Paul Ryan, candidate, and again, over a long period of time, had daily interaction with members of the Janesville Police Department. We also recognize, as Janesville does, that our resources are limited, and Chief Moore, Chief Jacobs, who's here from the city of Beloit, and Sheriff Spoden partnered, and we bought a Bearcat emergency response vehicle for the SWAT teams to use, and we've done some joint training with the use of that vehicle. I know of Janesville's work in the area of domestic violence issues, also of their work, and have served on committees with them in relationship to the child sexual assault cases that we unfortunately have to handle, and have seen them interact very professionally with those victims of crime. I've also had an opportunity to witness their commitment to community policing. A lot of agencies say, you know, we have a community policing philosophy. The Janesville Police Department lives that. Everything from Officer Valley, who goes out and gets clothing for underprivileged or disenfranchised members of the Janesville community, and on a lot of her own time works as a positive representative of the Janesville Police Department out in our community, providing for those that have a need. I could talk all night about the professionalism. We reached out most recently to the Janesville Police Department for a promotion process that we had internally, and we had them come over and help with our assessment center, just to act as role players and evaluators for us to help us further promote individuals within our own agency. So I'm confident that I can call on Chief Moore, I can call on Deputy Chief Dan Davis, Deputy Chief Olson, or any of the men and women of the police department to help us further our mission of public safety here in Rock County. All that being said, that's all the professional stuff. I live here in Janesville and have for the past 32 years. I own a home here, and I can call on members of the police department, and have had a few interactions with the police department where they don't always know that I'm the chief deputy from the sheriff's office, and I get treated with dignity and respect and have received a high level of service. So I'm proud to be here today to speak on their behalf.
Thank you. Don? Yes, that's what I was going to say.
Could you spell your name, please, sir?
A as in apple, M as in Mary, A as in apple, C-H-E-R. And I'm a concerned and interested citizen. I haven't had much interaction with the Janesville Police Department, but what little I have had, I have found that they are very unprofessional and very irresponsible. Back in July, I was driving down the street in Janesville, and I was 3/4 of the way through an intersection, and off to my right, out of a side street, came another car at a high rate of speed. Now, I was driving a 1998 large Tahoe. The car that hit me was a subcompact car. That car was traveling at such an excessive speed that when it hit me broadside, it put the passenger seat on my console, blew my tires, flipped my vehicle over, totally destroyed it, and slid my vehicle down the highway. That's how bad it was, and I'm still under doctor's care. The lady that was driving, I guess, got a ticket for imprudent and excessive speed. That was it. In the report by Officer Neighbor, it said my vehicle had moderate damage to it. And if you go through the report, you'll find several things that are inaccurate. I called Officer Neighbor and asked him why the report was made out the way it was and why she wasn't charged with failing to yield right away and excessive speeding and other charges that could have been more appropriate. He says, well, I just gave her what I thought was right, and I don't want to add one charge onto the other, one over the other. And that's the way I just did it. I said, well, I'm not happy with what she has here. And how about the witnesses? Well, we had one witness, and he said she was driving excessively fast, and at least 35 miles an hour. And I said, well, what about the other witnesses when she said that she was speeding, and the reason she was speeding is she was in a hurry to go get a chocolate chip cookie down a Quick Trip so she'd get home quick. He says, well, I don't know any about any other witnesses. I said, you didn't check any other witnesses? No, I didn't. So then I was talking with a friend of mine that's district attorney, and he said, well, why don't you talk to his superior? So I called the superior, which his last name was Vaughn, V-A-U-G-H-N. And I asked him about this. He says, well, I don't know. He says, I'll check into it and I'll give you a call back. I said, okay. So a month went by, never heard a thing. So a district attorney friend of mine said, under Information Freedom Act, why don't you get all notes and memos from that file? So I called the Janesville department and asked them how much it would be, so when I come over I could have a check ready and they could have all notes and memos ready. And the lady at the department said, well, there's no notes or memos. I said, well, did Officer Vaughn talk to Officer Neighbor? Well, if he did, it'd be in the file if he made any notes or memos. So there were no notes or memos in there at all. So there I was with being hit that hard, and I went over there and I checked and there were skid marks there. And when I asked Officer Neighbor, did you check how long were the skid marks? And he said, oh, I didn't look for skid marks. And I said, if you're going to investigate this, why didn't you check for skid marks? Oh, I don't know, he said, I just didn't. So I think that was being very irresponsible, unprofessional by Officer Neighbor and Officer Vaughn also. And she stated she had insurance, which I, in my investigation, found out she didn't. I informed Officer Neighbor and Officer Vaughn both about that. They said, oh, well, we don't want to go back and charge her with not having an insurance. We just don't want to go back and do that. So then when I found out, I got a copy report when she went into court. Charges were dropped. She had charged for nothing. And she almost killed me. And she totaled my vehicle out. Now I think that's very unprofessional and very irresponsible.
Your comments are noted. However, I would like to point out that the police department does not and is not responsible for deciding whether or not to charge. You know, that would be up to either the city attorney.
That's correct.
I just have a question. How long did it take the Janesville Police Department to respond to your crash?
I have no idea because I was pretty well dizzy and I crawled out of my vehicle. However, that's the same excuse the city attorney used. He said all I could do was go according to report. And the report said you only had moderate damage to your vehicle and that was it. And he said I could only charge what the report or what the investigating officer had on the report. So the investigating officer is the one that should have been more professional and more responsible in that accident.
And did you say that he did charge the driver with a violation?
Yeah, imprudent and excessive speed.
Yeah.
However, they couldn't prove it because they didn't have a radar out to determine what her speed was. Even though she admitted she was speeding, and even though they had witnesses, she did not get charged with anything.
Yeah. Well, I won't discuss the merits of the case without knowing all the facts. You know, from my experience in law enforcement, and some of the things that you're saying might not necessarily add up. But have you talked to Chief Moore about any of your issues?
I was told to talk to his superior. When I called over to talk to the chief, I was forwarded to his superior at that point because the chief was not available.
Well, we'll note your comments to the board, and thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Steve Kopp, Town of Beloit Police Department.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephen Kopp, and I'm the police chief for the town of Beloit. As you may know, I do have a prior association with the Janesville Police Department, and I have knowledge of their inner workings, and I know the quality of their personnel and their programs. But I'm addressing you this afternoon not as a former employee, but as the police chief of a small jurisdiction nearby. Chief Moore and his staff enjoy an outstanding reputation in the law enforcement community in this area. And that reputation is earned and deserved for a number of reasons, a few of which I will mention here. The assessment team has probably already been made aware in going through the files and even tonight from other speakers of the many community programs that the police department offers. The award-winning domestic violence intervention program, Project Sober Streets, Do Not Serve list, the SAFE program, working closely with neighborhood associations, and the many collaborations with the school district are all examples of the programs that the Janesville Police Department offers. Last month, as Mrs. Sukis alluded to, Chief Moore hosted a large-scale tabletop exercise and invited a number of agencies from the area. This was an active shooting scenario, but it was different from what we normally see because typically those are tactically based, and this one actually started after the situation was stabilized and dealt with the long-term effects of dealing with an incident of that nature. There were probably 60 participants in this tabletop exercise representing about a dozen agencies. And it was very well done, very well documented, and I think a lot of lessons were learned, not only for the law enforcement representatives there, but for the many agencies that don't typically be involved in those types of tabletop exercises. The Janesville Police Department regularly offers training to other agencies in the area. They, on numerous occasions, have sponsored active shooter training and opened that up to other agencies, and those have been in schools, at a hospital, and at local businesses. They sponsored a 2-day training session on fair and impartial policing, and just recently had a training session on managing officer stress and suicide prevention. They also regularly offer a course called Street Cop Spanish, which helps the patrol officers in that capacity. Twice a year, the Janesville Police Department sends their 2 canine teams to my jurisdiction to assist with a sweep of the Turner High School and Middle School. Their canine teams also have come to my jurisdiction for building searches, scene searches, and vehicle sniffs. Being a small agency with limited resources, the Janesville Police Department has helped us out on several occasions with major investigations, so I very much appreciate that. In closing, my experience as an assessor with WILEAG has provided me with exposure to police departments throughout the state. I believe the Janesville Police Department provides high-quality professional police service to the citizens of this community, and I am confident that they meet all applicable standards. I support the Janesville Police Department's effort for reaccreditation. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry Barton.
Good evening. Larry Barton's my name. I've been a citizen of the city of Janesville for 45 years. Moved here in 1969, getting out of the Marine Corps. I've been a practicing lawyer in Wisconsin for 48 years. I'm a member of the Police and Fire Commission here in Janesville. I've been a member of that 5-person body for approximately 3 years. I'm here to tell you that my job is easy. My job is easy because as a member of the Police and Fire Commission, we deal with problems, and we deal with any problems that may arise in either the police or the fire department in terms of complaints and so forth. And we simply do not have those kinds of problems. I am personally familiar with Chief Moore. His protocol and his respect that he has with his men make his leadership very, very clear. As you know, it's far easier to lead people when you have their respect. He has his officers' respect. One of the things I wanted to look at, if nothing more out of curiosity, when I became a new member of the Police and Fire Commission, was a sensitivity to issues of trying to acquire minority female officers, people of color, and so forth. I also was interested in the process of hiring and testing and promotion. And you probably have found out, I assume, as part of your accreditation process, although don't pretend to know everything you do, you probably found out that the systems and the standard operating procedures that is in place are quite detailed, are quite fair, and are to be commended. I also, unlike some of the other speakers, if you have any questions that you think I could address, I would try to do that. I don't pretend to know what you folks do exactly. I do know that our police department takes this accreditation process very seriously. And I wanted to take the time to be here and make myself available if you had any questions.
Members have a question?
Questions for me?
Okay, well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Carol Zer... I'm not sure how to pronounce that last name. Thank you.
I'm Carol Zernjabal, and I'm just a resident here in Janesville. Have not had good responses with the police. One incident, I got up and there was a car parked right in front of my house, and I called the police. It was about 5 in the morning, and they said, "Whose car is it?" And I said, "I didn't know." And they says, "Well, could you check and call us back?" And I had no way of checking, and I said to them, "Why don't you look up the license? I can give you that." Well, I don't know if they looked it up or not, but pretty soon I had about 6 police cars in the driveway. And they asked me what happened. I said, "I have no idea. I woke up, this car's in my lawn." And they says, "Well, what do you want us to do?" And I says, "I want you to get rid of it," or whatever. And they says, "Well, if we call a tow truck, you're going to have to pay for it." And I says, "I don't understand why. If you're illegally parked somewhere, don't you tow them away?" And we got through that, and they called the tow truck, and I had to sign a release that if they did any damage to the lawn, I'd be responsible, whatever. And I said to the police, "You mean if I go park on someone's lawn any way I want, it's not a problem?" And they says, "Well, you don't have any no trespassing signs up." So I don't know what happened with that car or whatever, but I put up the no trespassing signs hoping, you know, that would avoid it. Well, it never happened again. I'm sure that was an unusual situation, but it does not prevent people from walking through my lawn and littering and different things. And so when I called the police about that, and they says, "Well, you should follow those people, see where they're going, their home, give us the address, and we'll go talk to them." Whatever, that was one incident. The worst incident was, I was on Highway 51, and the person in the car that was driving got out of control and started swinging at me and hitting me and throwing open the door. And I grabbed my phone and I called 911, and she said, "Where are you?" I said, "We're on Highway 51 heading towards Janesville."
So at that time, you were not in the city of Janesville?
We were between Edgerton and Janesville. I don't know exactly where the city limit is.
I would ask that you just keep your comments regarding the
Okay, well,
Janesville
we
Police
got to
Department.
Janesville, okay.
Okay.
I called again, they never did get us on Highway 51, and I called and I says, we're going to my house, please come to my house. So I got out of the car, he took off, but in between I had got hit very hard, a fractured rib. So when the policeman came, he said to me, what did you say to make him hit you? And I says, I don't think I said anything. I wasn't talking to him. He was so upset. And he says, what did you say to make him hit you? I says, I don't know. And he says, what did you say? He said that to me 6 or 7 times. And I said to him, what do you say to a dead person? And I says, why do you keep asking me that? Why do you keep asking me that? And the guy with him says, well, it's in case we go to court. We need all this documented. Well, I said I needed to go in the house and take a pain medicine or something. I wanted to actually go get a recorder too and record this guy. And anyhow, I said, you need to do something. I don't want him coming back. I don't want this to happen again. So he did call. I gave him the guy's phone number and he called him, and the guy finally answered the phone. And then he was in his car and he came out, and I says, well, what's happening? And all this time he didn't want me to go in the house, couldn't go in the house. And he says, well, he said he don't remember hitting you, but if he did, it was an accident. So I says, you're doing nothing? He said, no. So I went in the house, and the guy that had hit me is on the phone. He says, boy, that guy really got your number. He didn't seem there was any problem at all. He's laughing. So I went out and I told the police officer, I says, I really don't like this at all. You know, bad enough I'm hurting, and it seems like you're taking his side and telling him it's okay to get hit. And police officer says, well, that isn't what I meant or whatever, and he was going to take care of it. But I think that the police officer, number one, when you're in an abusive situation or domestic violence or something, there's an issue and something needs to be done. And right after that, this incident in Brookfield, the spa, that girl that had called the police several times and they didn't respond, well, he killed her. And people told me I should call the police. I called the sergeant or lieutenant, whoever it was, and he assured me that it shouldn't have happened that way, and, you know, I should file reports and all this stuff. But I just think in the future, if the police would protect the person that got abused, people don't call the police for no reason. I mean, people like to go on with their life and continue, but when you get that kind of, what should I say, not service, but disrespect, you're scared to death. Don't know what to do. The future.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Obviously, I can't comment on the merit of your particular case, but Chief Morris here, he heard your comments, and I'm sure that I am familiar with the parking situation, though, because you did send me a letter, and I did look that up, so I see that they did have the vehicle towed from your lawn, and it was removed. I saw the report. It looked like it was done in a timely manner, so apparently that they did get that taken care of that night. Well, apparently she did get a ticket, and her car was towed, so according to the report. Thank you. David O'Leary?
Good evening. My name's David O'Leary, and I'm the Rock County District Attorney. I have been in that position for 18 years, and I am also a lifelong resident of the city of Janesville. So this is my home, and I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of the association I've had with the Janesville Police Department. 2 points I wanted to make about the accreditation issues that you're addressing. Number one is the leadership at the police department. My role as district attorney basically is to go to keep our community safe, and to, as district attorney, the size of my office, I go where the issues and the problems are in the major cases. What is huge for me is the need for communication between law enforcement agency and the prosecutors handling a case. We're the ones that are going to be appearing in court. We're the ones that need to hopefully avoid the legal issues before they wind up in front of a judge or a jury, and then we're defending what the police department did. In the case of the Janesville Police Department, I have an excellent working relationship with command on down, from officers to responding to my subpoena clerks when we need them for testimony, from the command staff when I see a system issue of why are they doing a certain investigation in a certain manner, all the way to the command staff of when we have a system issue that needs to be reviewed. I can contact the chief, he and I can sit down and we can discuss what would be the best practice in handling these in the future, and we have done that regularly. So from again, a system issue, we have an excellent working relationship. I am district attorney here, but I'm also on the board of the Wisconsin District Attorneys Association. I am president-elect there, and in that role, I get to see where other issues are going on around the state, and I think we kind of take it for granted, at least I notice that, where the communication is working well, you take that for granted. You always go to where the problems are, and I've seen other agencies where they do not have a good working relationship between prosecutor and their law enforcement. So I think, again, here in Janesville, we have it working well, and I think that's a credit to the police department. The second issue I wanted to talk about is, as an example of that leadership role that they take in the community, is the domestic violence program that they began here. Again, over 18 years, I've seen lots of different programs start. Some start well, good intentions, but just don't have the follow-through. Funding is an excuse a lot of times of something. It's a good program, but we just can't have funding. But they started a domestic violence program. Again, I met with the chief. He explained what the concerns are. And obviously, as a prosecutor, domestic violence in the community is a major part of what I do on a daily basis in dealing with the effects of it, prosecution of the perpetrators, keeping the community safe. Their domestic violence program, what has been huge for me as a prosecutor is watching the follow-up that is done by the agency. Not only do they have the initial responders and they're providing training for those officers as how to respond to domestic violence and deal with victims and deal with investigations, they also have the follow-up officers that go in days later, meet again with the victim, advise them of the services such as the YW shelter care or other options in the community for those victims so that we can hopefully break that cycle of violence. But more importantly for me as a prosecutor, they give me more evidence. They go in later and they again get a statement from the victim, or at least talk to the victim, make sure that they're safe, make sure that the offender's not continuing with follow-up harassment or any concerns we have there. They also document the injuries. A lot of times, investigation of an injury of a domestic violence nature where a perpetrator will go hands-on on a victim, the initial responding officer may not see the bruising that comes into light days later. Those follow-up officers document those, photograph them, record that, save that as evidence, and it makes my job a lot easier prosecuting those domestic violence cases and gives us a better case when we go into court. So for that, again, I think that is commendation for Chief Moore, because it is a collaborative effort that he did working with the other individuals in the community with the domestic violence. How can we improve? How can we do things better? And how can we work with an agency such as the District Attorney's Office to give them a better product in prosecuting perpetrators of domestic violence? So for those two matters, I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of, again, I think they are doing things well, and I'm grateful for the assistance they provide me in my cases. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Would you have an opportunity to answer a couple questions?
Yes, sir.
As a district attorney and the chief prosecutor for Rock County, you or your deputies have the occasion to review reports from the Janesville Police Department regarding initial calls to domestic abuse situations?
Daily.
And when you're doing so, how would you rate the quality of those reports from those initial investigations?
The quality is very good. Again, no one's perfect. You can never say that everything is done perfectly. And when you fly spec a report later, a lot of times as a prosecutor, I will ask follow-up questions, and that's the importance to me of I can contact either the supervisor or the officer themselves and saying, hey, your report does not state For example, it may say, for example, a weapon was involved. What was the weapon? What was, was it recovered? Do I have that as evidence? And so those type of follow-up questions, when I contact them, they're answered timely. They follow up on them. But as a whole, the reports, again, I think are very well done. We do have a court officer that regularly brings those reports up to my office on a daily basis for our in-custodies and regularly for the ordered-ins. And again, as we're reviewing those, we have the ability to ask follow-up questions and send those questions back in the form of a memo or a phone call to the agencies, and we always get a timely response.
And then I just have another question. Do you or your deputies have the opportunity to review traffic crash reports that involve criminal charges that are prepared by the Janesville Police Department?
Yes.
In your experience, have those reports been professionally and adequately prepared to help you in assisting with your prosecution of those cases?
Yes, and again, the problem, at least that I've seen in those reports, is there's too much detail in them when you have all those check the box forms that they come in, and I've got so much information that what is useful for me as a prosecutor, again, going to where just the sheer volume that we deal with. I go where the cases are going to trial, going to have a motion hearing. The other ones mostly default or resolve well before I get to that level. But on the major cases, and that's, again, where I give them the credit. They put the effort where they need to on the major issues, but they still have, the rest of the information is, valid and correct. So I have, there are certainly cases where we cannot prosecute because we do not have all the information, but the reality is we never will have the information because it simply is unattainable. So there are certain investigations where, through no fault of anyone, you simply can't get a provable case. And I know you're familiar with that in any investigation. Although we believe something may have happened, we can't prove it. That's a reality. But from their investigations, again, that I've seen, the traffic ones, most of those go to the city attorney's office and they prosecute those. I will only deal with the criminal, so again, the major ones. And from those, because they're a more serious case, I will get more detail and I have the information that I have. If I am missing something, again, I contact their agency and I get an appropriate response and I get the follow-up information that I need to make it prosecutable.
For your comments.
Certainly.
Jim Jensen.
Good evening, Jim Jensen, Fire Chief, City of Janesville. In my 4th year as Fire Chief, been with the department for 26 years and 15 years as a Chief Officer. I work with the Janesville Police Department officers and command staff on a routine basis. The fire department and police departments in the City of Janesville have an excellent working relationship. And as you're probably aware, that is not true in every city, but we do have a great working relationship here. Our departments work together routinely, literally thousands of times each year. And as I'm sure you're also aware, no emergency incident is perfect. Emergencies are very dynamic, stressful incidents. And we're always striving for improvement. So when issues are noted, areas for improvement, we are able to share that information between departments honestly, promptly, and effectively, and we implement necessary changes and when we see them. Our departments train together on a regular basis. Most recently, we've participated in training in active shooter, and we are continuing to develop our preparedness in that area. We work cooperatively in the past several years on a major communications upgrade to ensure interoperability, and we work together routinely on community relations efforts. The fire department is honored to participate in the National Night Out each year and other similar community relations efforts. Many of our incidents are critical incidents. The aftermath of those incidents is dealt with on a prompt and efficient manner. Diffusings, debriefings are held. I get compliments from our people on those efforts, and they're very appreciative, and our departments work together on making sure that happens when it needs to. The Janesville Police Department sets the bar very high in the city in the area of personnel management. They have an excellent employee commendation program. They have an excellent employee development program, and their discipline program is very effective, and I applaud them for their efforts. And as I said, they set the bar high for our department, and I often use Chief Moore as a resource in personnel management issues. Our citizens in Janesville have a very high standard for public safety, and I am very fortunate to work alongside the officers and staff of the Janesville Police Department in an effort to maintain those high standards and to meet the expectations of our citizens. And I would certainly support efforts of the Police Department for accreditation.
Thank you for your comments. Norm Jacobs.
Good evening. I'm Norm Jacobs, the chief of the City of Beloit Police Department, which is just south of here, almost at Illinois. I recommend the Janesville Police Department for reaccreditation as a WILEAG member. I can attest to JPD's meeting standards in a couple of areas that we regularly work with them. Most specifically, both in the area of administration and the operations side, we have real good interaction. Related to Chapter 8, Community Relations, I'm aware of JPD's great efforts with their Neighborhood Watch programs, by their very large publicly held Neighborhood Watch celebration. I'm aware of their JPD's community relation program and how it reaches far and wide, because I'm constantly asked why we cannot have programs that Chief Moore has in Janesville. As far as Chapter 12 goes and training, Chief Moore regularly offers joint training with Rock County law enforcement, from rapid response training to stress management among our officers. They've got a great department that runs that. And once again, as often pointed out, Chief Moore has great programs and training for the whole county. Chapter 13 involves critical incidents. The police department in Beloit and Janesville have trained over the years. That's probably the longest cooperative effort that we've had with our tactical units. And we cooperate not only with the training in those units, but equipment. As mentioned before, we were able to get together with Janesville and Rock County and purchase a Bearcat rescue vehicle to be used between the largest of the three agencies in Rock County, should we need to use it. And we think that that's a great example of our cooperation between different units. The vehicle just happens to be parked in Beloit, but it's available anywhere in the county. By the way, that vehicle is also available for community relations events. But I do have one complaint, and because everything isn't all rosy, it has to do with keeping up with the Joneses. The Janesville Police Department continue to move in many ways, and they're always a leader in these critical areas that I see. And I'm always challenged by people in our community. Hey, Chief Moore is doing this, Janesville PD is doing that. Why can't you? Let's see if we can do that. And it's kind of nice to have that little competition, that push once in a while to look at our policies, procedures, and tactics, and try to measure up to JPD, and I truly try to do that. They're a good partner in law enforcement of Rock County, and we look forward to future cooperations in areas of mutual concern, and I sincerely believe that they are worthy of reaccreditation with WILEAG.
Thank you for your comments. Dr. Karen Schulz.
Good evening. I'm the superintendent of the school district of Janesville, and a little bit about our district. We are the 10th largest in the state of Wisconsin, 10,600 students, 1,400 employees, to give you a sense of who we are and how big we are. We have a strong collaboration with the Janesville PD, a long-standing collaboration. We do have 5 officers in our secondary buildings. We have 21 schools total and 3 middle schools, and so we have an officer in each of those schools. Our largest middle school is 900 students. Our smallest runs about 550 right now. And then we have 2 comprehensive high schools, about 1,300 and 1,600 students apiece, and we also have an officer in each of those buildings. We're very satisfied and happy with the services that we get from the officers in those buildings. They provide, I think, a valuable service to our students and to our employees, and they engage with us in many of our trainings that we do or that they do or we do in combination with each other, such as lockdowns. We do hard and soft lockdowns. They bring in the drug dogs periodically to sniff lockers and also do the parking lots. They do active shooter trainings in our buildings and safety checks. So all of those occur, and I have a confidence that those officers know the layout of our buildings, which is so important. They have the floor plans at the Janesville PD, and our officers use our building for training. They walk our buildings, and so they know the layouts in case anything should happen. They have a good sense of where things are, where exits and entryways are. I find the Janesville PD, not only the officers in our building, but sometimes we do call outside officers in for a call. They are professional, they're courteous, they serve as strong role models to the children in the school district of Janesville, and I'm very confident of their skills. I believe that our police chief, Chief Moore, is accessible. He's visible in the community, and I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that if I need to call him, that I can call him day or night, and if I have an issue, a problem coming up in the school district or an incident that has occurred, that he will respond to my call. I have his cell phone number as he has mine, and we have that open communication with each other, which I think is key and critical in the situation of running a school district, and also in light of the tragedies that have happened across the nation in schools. I need to have that confidence that the police chief is open to my ideas as I am to his. I do believe our schools are kept safe, but what I like most about Chief Moore is he's always thinking ahead, like Norm Felstead also mentioned. He is thinking about how we can continue to keep our schools safe. It's always a worry, and he comes up with new ideas that he will run past me, and oftentimes we'll partner together to bring something new to the school district of Janesville to continue to have and keep our students safe, our students and our employees. I have the utmost confidence in the skills and abilities of our police officers, and I too believe that they should be reaccredited. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else that would wish to speak tonight? Hearing none, then that concludes the hearing for tonight, and thank you for coming.